Welcome back to Engineered Coffee. This week we are going to talk about the sustainability of the coffee capsule and why the capsule is not the villain people think it is. But before we get started, the only favor I ask is that you please like, subscribe and share. It costs you nothing and helps me get more views, and that's the motivation behind this. Few products in coffee attract as much criticism as the capsule. It's single use, either made of plastic, aluminium. People consider it wasteful. At least that's the story. Today, we are going to slow that conversation down and look at sustainability as engineers do, not emotionally, but systematically. Because sustainability in coffee isn't about the materials alone. It's about what actually happens in the real world. What does sustainable even mean? Before we judge the capsule, we need to define sustainability, not in marketing terms, but in practical ones. Sustainability means resources used, energy consumed, waste generated, food lost, and behavior at scale. A product that looks sustainable on paper can perform badly in reality. And a product that looks bad at first glance can perform surprisingly well. Capsules fall into the second category more often than people realize. Let's talk about portion control, often the most ignored advantage. Here's the first uncomfortable truth. Capsules are perfectly portioned. Yes, you use exactly one dose of coffee, exactly one brew cycle, exactly one cup. Compare that to traditional brewing. Half-used filter machines, stale hot pots on hot plates, coffee poured down the sink. Globally, coffee waste is enormous, and wasted coffee has a much larger carbon footprint than a capsule ever will. Growing, transporting, roasting is far more resource intensive than making a small piece of packaging. If you throw coffee away, you've already lost the sustainability argument. Next, we talk about energy use, the capsule machines versus traditional brewing. Capsule machines work also for a very short time. They heat only the water that's needed, brew for a few seconds, not minutes, and shut off. Compare that to kettles boiled multiple times, filter machines kept warm, espresso machines left on all day. In many households, capsules actually reduce energy use, not increase it. Sustainability is about the total system energy, not how industrial something looks. Let's talk about materials. Aluminum capsules often get criticized, but aluminum is infinitely recyclable, as you've seen in one of my earlier aluminium videos. Once it's collected and recycled, it can be reused again and again with a fraction of the original energy. Plastics are obviously more complex, but modern capsule plastics are increasingly becoming more monomaterial, recyclable, or designed for specific waste streams. No material is perfect. What it matters is whether it can be collected, whether it can be processed, and whether consumers actually participate. A recyclable capsule in the bin is better than a compostable capsule in a landfill. Let's talk about promise versus practice. Compostable capsules sound like the perfect solution, but here's the reality. Most compostable capsules require industrial composting, controlled conditions, specific temperatures. In many countries, that infrastructure doesn't exist. So the capsule looks sustainable, but behaves like waste. Compostability only works when systems and behavior align. Otherwise, it's just good intentions in bad logistics. Let's talk about home compostable capsules. Well, I consider this mostly a dead end. Because this is where, in my opinion, a lot of money is being wasted and a lot of people are being misled. On paper, home compostable sounds ideal. In reality, it rarely works. Most people just don't compost at home. The first issue is simple and behavioral. Most people do not have home composting facilities. And The denser and more urban the population, the less likely home composting becomes. Apartments, city centers, dense housing, these are exactly the regions where capsule coffee consumption is the highest and home composting is its lowest. A solution that depends on behavior that doesn't exist at scale is not a solution. Home compostable conditions are rare. The second issue is technical. Home compostability, especially under European standards, often assumes elevated temperatures, sustained humidity, and active microbial environments. In practice, these conditions are rarely achieved. In real home compost heaps, what happens instead is partial degradation, long persistence, or the capsule simply drying out and sitting there. So while the material may pass a certification test, it often fails in real kitchens and gardens. Standards don't drink coffee, people do. Now let's talk about material density and weight. There's also a material penalty that almost nobody talks about. Most compostable capsules materials are denser and mechanically weaker than conventional plastics like polypropylene, for example. To achieve the same performance, strength, sealing pressure, resistance, you need more material. Typically thicker walls, higher grammage, and just generally heavier capsules. That means more raw material, more transport weight, more energy per capsule. From a pure engineering standpoint, that's already a step backwards. And the cost, it's not even close. Compostable materials typically cost 2 to 3 times more than polypropylene, sometimes more. So you end up with a capsule that uses more material, weighs more, and costs significantly more, and still may not compost properly. That's not sustainability, that's expensive optimism. In my view, home compostable capsules are largely a distraction. They look good in presentations, they sound great in marketing, but in real world conditions, they don't scale. They rely on rare behavior, and they often increase material and energy use. Sustainability isn't about the label on the box. It's about what actually happens after the coffee is brewed. If you really want to improve the footprint of capsule coffee, the answer isn't wishful composting. It's lighter designs, less material, better barriers, and efficient recycling, and systems that match how people actually live. That's where real progress comes from. Let's talk about recycling systems and why they matter more than the materials. This is why collection systems matter more than chemistry. Take aluminium or aluminum capsules and their recycling programs. They separate the coffee grounds, recover cleaner aluminum, and return it to the material loop. This turns a single-use product into a circular material flow. Without collection, even the best materials fail. Sustainability doesn't end at the factory gate. It ends at the consumer. Compatible capsules and private label play a role here too. They increase competition, push down over-engineering, encourage lighter designs, and force efficiency. At scale, small reductions in material thickness, energy per unit, and coffee waste add up to massive environmental impact. Sustainability improves fastest when volume meets engineering discipline. And now the real question people should ask. The real question isn't, is a capsule sustainable? The real question is the system better than the alternatives people actually use? If a capsule reduces food waste, reduces energy use, is collected or recycled, and delivers consistent results, then dismissing it outright is intellectually lazy. Now, I want to add something here because I've been critical of a lot of sustainability claims. And that criticism comes from experience. I've been working on a so-called paper capsule for years, not months, years. And I can tell you this, it's not an easy problem. Coffee capsules have to deal with heat, pressure, moisture, oxygen, sealing, and most importantly, machine interaction. Most paper-based concepts fail because they can't balance all of these requirements at once. The strength isn't there, or the capsule doesn't behave properly in the machine. Getting all of that right took time, lots of it. The solution we've arrived at is a hemp-based fiber capsule. And hemp is an exceptional material from a sustainability perspective. Here's why. It grows fast. It requires very little water. It needs minimal pesticides. It delivers strong, long cellulose fibers. And it's already used successfully in high-performance paper and composites. From a fiber engineering standpoint, hemp gives you strength, formability, and durability without resorting to heavy plastics or thick material sections. So my philosophy behind it is a deeper logic behind this approach. Coffee comes from a plant. Hemp comes from a plant. The lid is paper, also plant-based. In essence, the entire system starts as cellulose and ends as cellulose. That's the theory. Not looks compostable, not might degrade under special conditions, but cradle to grave in the most natural sense. I often describe it like this. It's no different than a branch or a leaf falling off a tree. It starts off as plant matter and it returns as plant matter. There's no material detours along the way. And that this is why it is different from home compostable claims. It isn't about chasing a label. It isn't about designing something that fits how people actually live or works in existing machines. It must work in the existing machines, protect the coffee properly, and return to the biological cycle naturally. Not because a standard says so, but because the material itself makes sense. So why this is different from home compostable claims? It isn't about chasing a label. It's about designing something that fits how people actually live, works in existing machines, protects the coffee properly, and returns to the biological cycle naturally. Not because a standard says so, but because the material itself makes sense. This is the direction I believe sustainable capsules need to go. Not thicker, not heavier, not more expensive, but smarter. Working with nature, not trying to outsmart it. Sustainability in coffee isn't about slogans. It's about material honesty, system behavior, and real-world outcomes. Capsules aren't going away. The question is whether we design them to fight nature or to return to it. Coffee capsules aren't perfect, but sustainability isn't about perfection. It's about net impact. And when you look at the full system, from farm to cup to bin, the capsules are far more defensible than their reputation suggests. In future episodes, we'll explore what the next generation capsule sustainability actually might look like. Lighter designs, better barriers, and smarter systems. This is Anthony, and it has been Engineered Coffee. See you next time. And please don't forget to like, subscribe,